a pan-fried cod with a kind of creamy garlic butter sauce, garlic roasted broccoli, some fried potatoes, and some homemade sourdough cheddar bay biscuits. So let's start by getting our potatoes and everything ready because those are essentially the thing that's going to take the longest. Then we will get our biscuits ready so that they can go into the oven. I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of olive oil into our pan to kind of get our onions kind of cooking up here for our potatoes. I've got little baby Dutch that we're going to kind of quarter or eighth up for this. I've got a really teeny tiny onion, little guy. I'm going to do a nice kind of dice on it, not terribly small, but a smaller, good sized one. And we'll get him sauteed up so that have a nice caramelization flavor on it. Will be lovely. So we got our onions prepped here. I'm going to put them in our oil. I'm going to turn my pan. We're going to start it out on the 6, but then we'll probably turn it down a little bit lower once it gets nice and hot for it. And then let's prep up these potatoes. I've just got a bunch of baby Dutch. And we're going to just eighth them up. So we have nice little kind of potato chunks here. We're going to just do a nice kind of herby fried potato. Kind of go with our meal today. It'll be delicious with some of that garlic butter sauce that we'll make from our fish drippings. So it'll be pretty delicious. I've got these. I love a good baby Dutch because they're such a nice, and they've got a delicate skin, but a good kind of waxy and pretty like mellow flavor in the inside there. But they're just a yummy potato that you can either boil or fry up. They just work well. They also are great in soups. So they're just a great all-around potato.
Chat loves you today.
Oh, thank you. This is one of the ones that I picked out that I was really love. I was like, I don't have any florally, flowery print ones. And I'm like, I was kind of been wanting some, warmer weather after we had like that big ice storm here. So this is one I picked out that my kids got me for my birthday. So yes, I think it's cute and darling and hopefully bringing on warmer vibes. Although today it was 73 was the high today. So we got some nice weather here. And I know I've been going through it. When you have so many new ones, it's like, ooh, which one do I want to wear right now? Figured I'd let my Yellowstone one, it needs to good wash for it. Sometimes I'm cooking and the aprons make it out, pretty decent unscathed. Other times it's completely covered in food or whatnot. Baking cake, it was like pink frosting everywhere for it. Okay, let's get our onions. We're going to give a nice little stir here with the onions. We'll get some tongs out and get these guys going. And turn it up just a smidge on here. Okay. And once we have a good starting caramelization on them, then we'll throw our potatoes in. Let's get working on our biscuits here. We're going to make a sourdough version of like the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits, which are delicious. So we're going to start out with a half a cup of sourdough discard. So great recipe if you need to get rid of some of your discard. It can be like active. So if you fed it recently, that's fine. It also can be, a day or two old. We're going to start with just a half a cup. I fed mine up last night, and I was going to make up a batch of sourdough bread this morning, and then that didn't happen. But maybe I'm going to feed it tonight, and I'll prep it up because I'm out. I've got one more loaf in my fridge, and then I'm out of sourdough to bake up, and I just love a good sourdough. We're already the sourdough I prepped up at lunch. I gave, I brought part of it over to my parents' house because I went and did some painting over there for them. And it is all gone. The rest of it is gone. It was so good. Everybody, they came home from school. They all ate it. My husband's face is like, what? It's all gone? Because it was a really good sourdough. So we've got our discard here, half a cup of our discard. And we're going to put in 3/4 cup of milk. Kind of mix all of this kind of our wet things. And these are, again, a drop biscuit, so they're not a like a press and fold, which is nice. We're going to mix our milk into our discard, and then we're going to add in a 1/2 cup of melted butter. We'll get that in here. Don't want any of it to go to waste. We're going to mix that butter, milk into our discard. And then we are going to add in our baking powder, baking soda, and some of our spices. So we're going to use a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of baking soda. So one, and one, and that helps give it a nice pop. There. And then we're going to use about a teaspoon and a half of garlic salt. Now we will be making an herby butter that will brush over the top of our biscuits at the end, just like, you know, Red Lobster has that lovely kind of herby butter on there. But I always put some in. But before we mix that up, let's give our onions here. We've got a good caramelization going, so I'm going to just turn down the heat. We're going to get our potatoes dropped in so they can start to cook. And slide these guys all in there. And these are, again, our baby Dutch that we kind of eighth up, I would say quartered, but we cut them into 8 pieces actually. We're going to give this a good stir, kind of coat it up in that residual olive oil from what we sauteed our onions in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a lid on it and let that steam heat kind of start the cooking process. That will make them nice and tender, but still give them a nice crispy skin on the bottom. And then every, couple of minutes, we'll give it a nice toss. So let me grab out my lid. I'll slide that guy on there. Let's mix in over here our baking powder, our baking soda, and our garlic salt into our sourdough discard, melted butter, and milk mixture. Just make sure you have no lumps in there. And then we'll add in 2 cups of flour and a cup of freshly grated cheddar cheese. You can actually sub in a whole bunch of different types of cheeses. A lot of times I'll change up the spices and the cheeses to give these biscuits like a fun little twist on it, like black pepper, oregano, and Gouda is a really delicious kind of variation of it. But we're sticking with our classic here. Just want to make sure I got some of those lumps mixed out from the baking powder and baking soda. You can see it's nice and foamy, and that's from the baking powder and baking soda reacting with the discard.
Yeah, question. Do you ever buy bread at the store?
I do buy bread at the store, occasionally. Most of the time, it's just my soft sandwich bread for it, just because I never always get around to making it, and I'm always needing like a slice here or there, either for like a sandwich in a kid's lunch or a panade for it. But for like my delicious eating bread, I always make that myself. So I do occasionally. It's just like occasionally, I buy buns and whatnot. I strive to make it all myself, but you know what? Reality hits. Can't do everything ourselves.
Was that 2 cups of flour?
Yes, 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and we're going to mix it in until it's just barely mixed. You don't want to over mix these because you want a nice light and fluffy biscuit. So once it's you've got a little bit of this flour peeking through, we're going to add in our cheddar cheese, and then we'll mix it a little bit more, but that way it will stay nice and fluffy. Again, don't over mix your biscuit or you're going to have a dense, rock instead of a nice fluffy deliciousness. And we're going to put in about a cup of grated cheddar cheese. Now I like the freshly grated because it melts a little bit nicer in there, but you can definitely use pre-shredded. And And I'm just kind of eyeballing. I will say you can use a little bit more than zesting. Just don't go too heavy on it, because if you put too much cheese in it, it will mess with the consistency of your biscuit when it bakes.
Yeah, question. You mentioned before that you used to watch cooking shows. Did you ever think that you'd be someone's favorite cook?
No, not in a million years. I never thought that I would actually do this, and it was kind of just a whim that I started it. But you know what? I'm really glad I did. It's been a really fun and journey, and I didn't ever think that people would actually watch me and like me on there, because again, everything I do, I don't feel like I have just these special, amazing skills. I don't feel like I'm a Gordon Ramsay or whatnot, but these are all skills that everybody can do. They just take a little bit of practice. And I think that's the beauty about it is, you know, hopefully I can instill confidence in people to start trying and trusting in their own abilities, because everybody can cook on there. Even if you think you can't, you can cook. Okay, we've got our biscuits here, and we're gonna just kind of make our little globs. When I kind of press and fold them together, or not press and fold, when I scoop them together, I just give them a little bit of a gentle shape, but don't press them too hard because you want them to be light and fluffy. I'm gonna place them on our parchment paper. Depending on what size you can get between 9 and 12 biscuits. I never know quite how many I'm going to get until the end, and I see exactly how much I grabbed in each one. It all depends on that first one, how big I make it. Now, you can definitely make them smaller, but I like the bigger ones, because the bigger ones, I feel like you get really fluffy inside on there, where I feel like with the smaller ones, you have to be careful not to overbake. And again, don't push too hard. You're just very gently pushing it together. If you look at it, they're kind of, almost as if they would fall apart if you try to pick them up and drop them. So they're just barely holding together. But that's what you want to really give you this really light and fluffy texture in the biscuit, especially with it being a drop biscuit. Looks like we're going to get 9 out of these. Yeah. And then I'll rearrange them to be a little bit more evenly on there.
Yeah, question. What does a drop biscuit mean?
So it just means that you're not having to cut it or do the press and folds to shape it. So essentially, you could scoop this out with a spoon and drop it. I like to give it a little shape so that it is more uniform. But that's essentially, there's 2 types of biscuits. You've got your press and fold, and then that you cut out with a kind of a cookie cutter or a biscuit cutter. And then you have the ones where you use a melted butter instead of a cold butter. To kind of drop like this, like what Bisquick is. Back in the day when Bisquick was those good old biscuits that used to make everything with Bisquick. Spread these guys out, and then we will pop these in the oven. These are going to bake at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. Slide those guys in here. Let's give our potatoes a quick flip, and then we will get on to our broccoli and then our fish, because our fish is kind of really quick to cook up, and then we'll make a lovely sauce. We're going to slide it under and flip it over, because again, we want nice kind of crispy edges in it. So don't stir your potatoes, but more of flip every so often. So that way you get those nice crispy sides to it. And then we'll put that lid back on. And then at the very end, I'll season it. But if you put spices on now, it can dry out your pan and then burn on the bottom.
What heat is your pan at?
My heat is on a 4. So I don't actually cook it super high because, again, you risk burning it and you need your potatoes to cook all the way through. But a 4 will give you a nice, good crisp. You just don't mess with it. You gotta let it sit. It needs its time on there. Okay, let's get our broccoli going. I'm going to get a little bit of butter melted for our garlic butter and Parmesan broccoli that we're going to have. This is a favorite in our family. And it beats, I feel like broccoli is always served steamed, but it's so good oven roasted. So we're gonna get that in there. I'll have that melt up, and then we'll throw in some fresh garlic. So I'll get the chopped up. We'll let that garlic kind of sizzle for a little bit in the butter, get a nice little crisp up on it, and then we'll coat our broccoli florets. Don't need quite that much. And then we'll do a nice little mince up on here. And then we're gonna get our cod seasoned up, and we'll do a pan sear on it, kind of a quick one. And then we'll make from the drippings of the fish, we'll make a lovely kind of a garlic butter sauce with a little bit of lemon juice and lemon zest in it. So, and a little bit of cream, but it will be delicious. So the fish in and of itself is going to be a very simple prep, but what we'll make after it will kind of elevate it. And the sauce will be really delicious for the potatoes as well. So here we have some this is our Pacific cod, so just a kind of a fresh one, simple, delicious white fish on there. It's a bit flakier than like a tilapia on there, but it's lovely. I think last week we had cod, and I did a batter on it, and we made fish tacos, which I do love a good battered cod because it's just like your classic fish stick. But this was, I'm going to do something a little different. I like to change it up. Don't like to do the same, like fish done the same style, you know, branch out. And we're going to get our garlic in here with our butter. I'm going to give this a nice little swirl around, and we'll let that start kind of infusing into it. Get a little bit of a crispness on there. Let's grab my knife here, and let's get our broccoli florets here prepped up and ready. Now, you can definitely you could chop up your stock if you want to and throw it in there and roast it. I think the stock is delicious. None of my kids eat the stalks of broccoli. It's because their father's a bad influence in how he eats broccoli. He eats it like a dinosaur would eat it, you know, just the leaves at the top, like a stegosaurus or a brontosaurus.
Yeah, question. Are you using frozen or fresh cod, and can you use frozen?
So I'm using fresh cod, and you can definitely use frozen cod. And anytime I say if you're going to use a frozen fish, you just need to make sure you pat it dry very well, because during the freezing process, a lot of times it can get waterlogged. And if you don't pat it dry, then it doesn't cook up as nice. But definitely, you can definitely use frozen. Most fish, a lot of times, is already frozen before you get it, even though it'll be fresh when you buy it at the store. A lot of times it's frozen in the process and kind of there. It's like a flash freeze. Okay, we're getting our broccoli florets here, just about up. Oh, you know what I realized? Remember when we put those biscuits in? I forgot to set a timer. And I'll peek at here, and I'm going to give my best estimate, and you guys are going to have to peek in there. Okay, they've been in like 2 minutes, so we'll say at 45, I'll take a peek at them and judge how much longer they need, because I told you I can't wait until my wall oven is fixed, because it's different over here. Soon, Friday, and hopefully all good news Friday. I don't want any thing like, oh, it's something else. I want it to be just this fused and it fixed. I'm gonna put a little bit of garlic salt in here, kind of infuse in this butter that's kind of toasting up this garlic. I'm gonna bring it over here so it has a chance to cool. Got that off? Yes. Let's get our broccoli on a baking sheet. For ease of cleanup, because we're going to be using cheese, put a little bit of parchment paper down on your baking sheet. That way, the cheese sticks to the parchment paper and not your pan. This makes it a little bit easier. And I will say, parchment paper is like your best friend. It makes great for baking, roasting. There's only a few things that I don't like to bake up on parchment paper, but for the most, I love it. Okay, we've got our broccoli here. I'm going to kind of put all my little florets so we can give a nice little drizzle over of our garlic butter here. And then I'll give them a nice little toss on here. And then we'll grate some freshly grated Parmesan cheese on here. But we'll toss them up, but I want to make sure kind of drizzle it. Make sure you get those nice little chunks of garlic on there too, because fresh garlic is amazing. Toss this up, kind of coat it nicely. Try to get each one of those little leaves in there, rub it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip them up so that when we grate our Parmesan cheese, they'll be on the nice leafy parts. And I like to bunch them together so that when I do grate my Parmesan cheese, they'll all fall on it and you're not wasting any on the baking sheet. Although on parchment paper, you can always eat that part cheese because it will crisp up like a chip. A little bit of butter on my hands now. And then we'll grate our Parmesan cheese over this, and then we're going to pop it in the oven and let that kind of cook up. And then we'll work on flip our potatoes, we'll season up our fish, and we'll get working on that. There we go. So we'll use a little bit of this. You can also use pre-grated Parmesan cheese, or I love the Parmesan like little sheets, the shaved one. Those work really well because they cover each piece of broccoli very, very nicely. And I'm always surprised how this like little block of Parmesan cheese produces so much cheese and it doesn't look like it's getting smaller. There we go. Beautiful. And just a little extra for good measure because who doesn't love Parmesan cheese? Okay, I'm going to pop this in my oven. I'm going to bake it underneath our biscuits. This typically on 400 is going to need about 10 minutes. You'll know it's ready when you have a nice vibrant green. Those are looking good. Let's flip our potatoes real quick. You can see that nice steam coming up. We should have good, beautiful, nice, see those crispy edges here? And this is cooking at a nice low temperature. We're right at 4, so low medium, but you're still getting these beautiful crispy edges.
Can you use frozen broccoli?
You can use frozen broccoli, but sometimes make sure you defrost it, pat it out, because if you leave a lot of that extra moisture in it, it can be more mushy when it roasts up. Fresh is the best, but some frozen broccoli will work well on there.
Any update on your wall oven?
Friday is when we're hopefully going to be getting the fuse for it and then it being fixed. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. So that it's nothing else, because the problem is they have to fix the fuse and before they can see if there's anything beyond the fuse, like the circuit board. So it could be something else and we don't know it because we don't have power going to it. So I'm just very, very keeping my fingers crossed that it's just this fuse. We're going to put in I'm going to do like a teaspoon and a half of olive oil. I'm going to give this a little swirl around, kind of coat the bottom of this. I don't want too much in there because we're going to make a sauce in there, my pan with the drippings, and I don't want too much oil left over in it. But we'll get that heating up in just a second. Let me grab some of my spices over here. And then while we're waiting, because we're going to make a nice herby butter for our biscuits to brush over it, I'm going to put my remainder butter in there. Got some residual garlic dripping in there, so we'll put that in there. We'll let that melt up, and then we'll add in some onion powder and garlic salt. I'm going to turn that to a really low setting, let it melt. Okay. Very, very simple seasoning on these because we're going to make a sauce afterwards on it. We're going to use a little bit of onion powder which will give a nice kind of crust on the fish when it kind of fries up, but it's very savory and delicious. So a nice little sprinkle over. And then I'm going to use a little bit of garlic salt. We'll do a little bit of black pepper and then just a splash of paprika for a little bit of coloring on there. And then when we make our sauce, we're going to use garlic and butter and some thyme in there and some lemon zest. So it's a nice, more light and bright seasoning on our fish, on our cod here. That is nice. I'm going to flip each one of these over, and then we're going to season up the other side. So this is the underbelly of it where they've filleted it. So it's not as pretty, but I like to season it because when you cook it up, you actually don't taste any of that for it. But we'll get those seasoned up as well. And then when I cook them in my pan, I will make sure that this side is facing up because that's the less pretty side. And when you cook your fish, when you do a pan fry, you want to do presentation side down first because that gives you the prettiest fry. A little bit of garlic salt. So we did our onion powder, garlic salt, a little black pepper, and then a little bit of paprika. Okay. Let me grab tongs. I'm going to get this going. And I'm not sure if I actually put paprika on the first side. So I'm going to flip them over, which is while that's heating up, and see if I did. You know what? I knew it. I was like, wait a second. I didn't put paprika on it. Paprika is a very, very mild spice, but it does give a nice kind of brownish black coloring on it when you fry it up. So it's one of those seasonings they use when you do like a blackened fish. Now I'm doing it very light, so it won't be as deep as if it's blackened, but it will add a nice pop of color to the cod, which is a nice weight fish there. But just a little bit. It's a nice mellow, savory on there, so it's pretty mild fish for it. Get that going here. Let's get our butter, nice little swirl around for this on here. I'm going to use this to brush over our biscuits. When in 4 minutes, I'll do a quick peek. Looking good, looking good. Okay. Not quite yet. Now let it heat up. Let's flip our potatoes here, and then we'll give some spices on them, and then we'll prep up some of for our sauce. Beautiful. So how we're getting this lovely kind of crispy edge on it. So you're steaming them with the lid on with their natural moisture, which helps make them nice and soft, but you still get those crispy edges. And I'm going to say, since we're towards the end and they're starting to get nice and soft, I'm going to leave the lid off so that no more moisture gets into them, so they still keep their form. We're going to press them down and let them continue, but we're done with our lid here. Okay, I think we're pretty close to getting ready to drop our first round in. And we'll get these kind of cooked off. I'm going to start with my fattest ones first. That way, because they'll have to rest the longest, but that way they'll stay nice and warm. Yep, got a nice sizzle when we're on there, which is what we want. Yep, making sure. I was like, wait a second, did I put it down on? Presentation side down. So the pretty side is going to go down. Your side that is filleted where the skin was is going to go up. That way you have a nice and pretty piece when it's done cooking. Let's get this one. I'll fit in here nicely. And again, don't overcrowd your pan when you're cooking because you don't want it to, you want it to get a good sear on it. I'm cooking them off at a pretty high temperature because I do want them to sear off well. We will use these drippings to make a lovely kind of sauce for them. Let me slide this up here. We'll get our garlic ready for our sauce. And I've got some green onions and some fresh thyme. And we'll use it, and I'll get a little bit of lemon zest and some lemon juice for this. But this sauce will be also wonderful with the potatoes, which we will season up here in just a second. So we're going to mince up our garlic. And have it nice, and I want it to be a nice kind of, it doesn't have to go completely to a paste, but a smaller mince on it so that we get more of it infused into our sauce. Now, grating your garlic will allow a lot more flavor to come out, but we don't have to do that for this. A good mince will work. Check our fish here. See how it's looking. Grab my fish spatula. A little bit longer. Want it to kind of sit and sear up. Looking good. Turn it up just a smidge higher so we can cook off some of that liquid in there. And get that good sear on it. We'll flip it over. Okay. 48. Let me check my biscuits. Let me grab my oven mitts here. These are looking pretty good. Our broccoli is almost ready as well, which is perfect because we're about done. Look at our beautiful kind of golden biscuits here that we will brush with our herby sauce in just a second here on this. So delicious. These are, again, made with a half a cup of our sourdough discard. We've got a cup of cheddar cheese in there, and they are a homemade version of our like the Red Lobster biscuits, which are so delicious. So we're going to make our herby butter. We've got it nice and melted. We're going to add in, so we have our melted butter here. We're going to add in some onion powder, about a teaspoon and a half, and a little bit of garlic salt, about a teaspoon. And then we're going to brush this herby butter over the top of each biscuit, and that's going to give it such a great flavor. So let's first get our fish flipped. Beautiful. For this. Lovely. You can see that reddish color is from our paprika. We'll kind of cook that off.
Do you have the biscuits recipe posted anywhere?
I have a biscuit recipe available for my members on there, but I do post all of my lives so that everybody can always re-watch the lives and cook along with me again and make all of my recipes. I make sure I go through all of the steps and the measurements on there for it. So here, we're going to take our herby butter and we're going to brush it over the top of each biscuit. And then I always like to do 2 brushes of it. The first one lets it kind of soak into the biscuit, really get that nice herby flavor. We'll let it sit, and then I'll come back in a couple minutes once the biscuits have had a chance to kind of cool down a little bit and put that next coating on it. There we go. Beautiful. So we've got our lovely biscuits there. Get our broccoli here. I'm going to turn off my oven because my broccoli is just about ready. I'm going to get a pan or a plate to take my first fish off. The second side doesn't need nearly as long as the first side, and these are pretty thin fillets. Beautiful. I'm going to put them on here, and then we'll put our next layer on. We'll let those cook up, and then we're going to make, from the drippings in the pan, we are going to make a lovely sauce.
What's in the butter that you spread on the biscuits?
So onion powder, garlic salt, and a little bit of, and that's it. You brush it over and makes it delicious. So it kind of gives you that nice herby flavor. Now, I did use the pan that we had for our, that we made our garlic butter for our broccoli in it. So that has a little bit of that residual fresh garlic in there as well. A little bit of butter in here. And that way we can cook up our next round. Again, put presentation side down first. We'll get these guys in here. And then once we'll have those drippings, I'll throw in my fresh garlic and then some cream, a little bit of lemon juice to make our sauce. Let's flip our potatoes here. Beautiful. We'll get these guys seasoned up in just a second.
Can you go over the potatoes?
Yes, so right now we have some baby Dutch potatoes that we kind of quartered up. We sauteed up some onions and we added them and we cooked them in a little bit of olive oil. We're going to add some spices on them in just a little bit to season them up at the last minute. Let's get that. We've got our, let me push this guy down. He wants to curl up. Sometimes you get ones that don't want to cooperate with you. We'll hold him down, make sure he gets a good sear on him. He's a little piece. Sometimes when you go there and if, you know, you get like little strips of it. But we like to change it up and not do the same types of fish every week. Those guys wanting to roll. Looking good. Slide this guy over. Beautiful. Ah. Perfect. These guys. Here's my tricky one. We'll let that finish cooking there for just a second. And grab a little bit of chicken bouillon out of the fridge because we'll use that for a little bit of our sauce as well. And then let's grab our, yep, looking good. So our broccoli, it's got a nice vibrant green on it, which means we're nice and ready for it. Let it cool off a little bit so it's not scalding hot when we eat. And while we're waiting for these fish to finish up, let's season up our potatoes. We're going to add on our potatoes onion powder, garlic salt, good shake around. I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper. And then I have some fresh green onions. I'm going to let those spices hydrate from just the natural heat coming up. And then we will mix them in. Beautiful. Get these guys in here. Slide them over. And then we're going to make our sauce that will go with this. Look at that beautiful kind of crispy edge on there. Delicious. Okay, so that is our cod. And now we're going to add in our drippings here. We're going to add in our garlic. I'm going to let that cook up for just a minute or two. Make sure you scrape along the bottom of your pan to really bring up those spices and that flavor. Oh, it smells amazing already. But that's just fresh garlic. It's so wonderful. While we're waiting for that, let me grab a little, well, we can use this one because we're going to be putting cream in there. So we can use this cup that had some milk in it for a little bit of our water on here because we're going to add that to make a little bit of our sauce here. And then let's get our biscuits brushed one last time. Again, this side, really dab it on those little herbs, the onion, and the garlic salt on here because that just gives the biscuit that lovely herby crust on it. Beautiful. And again, these are made with a half a cup of our sourdough discard, which just makes them, you know, just so wonderful, but they taste just like our Red Lobster biscuits, so they are fabulous. Okay, we've got that. I'm going to add in a little bit of my water here. I'll let that simmer up. Scrape the bottom of your pan off here. We're going to add in a little scoop of chicken bouillon, which will season this up. I'm going to turn it down a little bit lower so I don't lose too much of that liquid too quickly. And this will allow you to use a little bit less cream in it. Kind of cut it, but give you a nice rich flavor. About a teaspoon. You don't need a whole lot of chicken bouillon. A little goes a long ways to season this guy up. We'll mix that in there. Let it simmer for a second. I'm going to give these potatoes a nice toss now that those spices have had a chance to kind of hydrate from that steam. And just kind of wonderful. And again, this allows them, putting on those spices at the very end, allows them to cling to the potatoes without sticking to the bottom of your pan. Beautiful. Okay, turn that guy. He's ready. And make sure deglaze, which means you're going to be scraping the bottom of our pan. With this, we're going to add in some of our cream. I've got some fresh thyme and a little bit of lemon zest and lemon juice. And then we are pretty much ready to serve up here. So good amount of cream because it's a nice cream sauce. So I think I have about a 1/3 cup going in there. We'll see if I need more or not. Give it a good mix around. Kind of bring it with those flavors, with that garlic. We're going to let it simmer. As it simmers, it will thicken up a little bit because it will kind of reduce down. There we go. Beautiful. And now I'm going to add in some fresh thyme. I also have some green onions and some lemon zest. I'm not going to mince up the thyme. I want the thyme to be more whole leaves so that when you get a piece, you get like a nice strong burst of flavor in it versus it kind of, when you mince it up, that will kind of infuse a bit stronger. So this will give it just when you eat it. I'm going to use up the last of it too. Beautiful. And it's such a pretty color to it from those there. Add in a little bit of our green onions as it simmers and a little bit of lemon zest. You don't need a whole lot of lemon zest. A little goes a long way. You get a little more flavor out of lemon zest than you do out of lemon juice. And then we need about a teaspoon of lemon juice. Take the seeds out. Wow, there's a lot of seeds in this guy. And you could go heavier on the lemon juice, but my older son, he is not a big fan of lemon, so I try to do a little bit more mild for him. I'm going to taste it, and then I think I'll drop our fish back in, and then we'll be ready. Let me grab a little spoon here. See if I need to add anything else, maybe a little garlic salt, but we'll see. Nothing else. The chicken bouillon added enough saltiness, so beautiful. So I'm going to turn this down real low. We're going to take our cod that we had pan seared off, and we're just going to place it on top of our garlic, butter, and kind of a cream sauce here. But that sauce, then when you serve it up, you can use it, and it has that just wonderful flavor. And I will say this is a great way to use if you are using a frozen fish, because frozen fish doesn't always cook up as nicely as a fresh fish. But when you make a lovely sauce like this, that can kind of take away from some of the texture that frozen fish will give you. Beautiful. And then, of course, we'll top it off with a few more green onions. And then just a little bit of lemon zest on top for a little extra added brightness. And then let's serve up dinner. It's just kind of a yummy, delicious way, a little bit different. Slide this out of my way. And grab a plate. Off, off, and off. Okay, get my hands cleaned up. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab my oven mitts because I'm feeling my broccoli is still hot. The pan is still hot. Slide that over here so I have a little bit of place to get it. Okay, for dinner tonight, let's start. I'm gonna grab a little shovel. For dinner tonight, we have our pan-seared cod in a lovely garlic butter sauce that is filled with lemon zest and a little bit of chicken bouillon, fresh green onions. So just a lovely, bright and creamy, rich sauce to go with our cod. We're going to serve it with some garlic Parmesan broccoli that we coated with a nice garlic butter made from fresh garlic and some Parmesan cheese and roasted in the oven. We have our panned fried potatoes that we seasoned with onion powder, garlic salt, black peppers, fresh green onions, and are nice and crispy but tender on the inside. And then, of course, the star of the show, we have our beautiful homemade sourdough cheddar bay biscuits for just a lovely little, grain on our side. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to that link and watch and cook again and cook along with me. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my hex clad pans, my all clad pans, my knives, cutting boards, all the different things that I use in the kitchen. I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and